Good evening, everyone. I will now call for the approval of the agenda.
Approved. Deputy O'Hara.
Second. Been moved by Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
Second by Sean.
Seconded by Councillor Locke. On the question?
Question.
Questions called for. Please vote now.
Has somebody pressed the request to speak button? It's not allowing me to open the vote.
No.
So you'll have to manually vote.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Contrary?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, item 2, Mayor's comments. I do have one this evening. Tonight is our first totally virtual town council meeting. Last month, we met with a few people at Town Hall, including media and members of public. This evening, I am in my office here at Town Hall, and everyone else is connected from a remote location via GoToMeeting. I want to thank our CAO, clerk, and IT department who helped make this meeting possible. Town Hall and all other municipal facilities and buildings remain closed. This includes all playgrounds, basketball courts, the skateboard park behind the Kennebecasis Public Library, and the Homestar Dog Park. Our municipal parks and trails remain open. However, gatherings are not permitted, and physical distancing of at least 2 meters must be maintained at all times. This is not a suggestion or recommendation. This is law under the provincial state of emergency. The Kennebecasis Regional Police Force is making additional patrols in these areas, and officers are authorized to ensure compliance. If you see people flaunting the rules, please report them to the provincial government at 1-844-462-8387. Nobody is above the law. We have a collective responsibility to flatten the curve by following the directives imposed by the state of emergency. Later this evening, Council will debate a donation to the Kennebecasis Food Basket. I know many of you want to help during this difficult time. The best way to assist the food basket right now is by financial donation rather than a food donation. Please call 847-5854. That's 847-5854 for more information on how to help. That number again, 847-5854. There are no changes to garbage, recycling, or compost collection at this time. Please continue to place your solid waste material curbside as per usual. And please note, there are no changes to the schedule on Good Friday or Easter Monday. I am proud to be part of a group of local citizens, municipal leaders, organizations, and government representatives who have come together on the Rise Up St. John initiative that will help our region recover from the COVID-19 crisis. I invite everyone to visit the website, riseupsj.com, for details. I want to wish everyone a happy Easter. I know this is a long holiday weekend. This will be very difficult, but it is important to follow the rules and avoid social gatherings, which includes Easter dinner with people who don't live with you. Please stay safe. We will get through this together. Thank you. Item 4, moment of reflection, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship. We would like to take a moment to pause and remind ourselves of the important work we have before us tonight. May we make good decisions without prejudice or bias and always in the best interest of our community, which we are here to serve.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Item 5, disclosure of interest. Not hearing any. Item 6 is presentations. There are no presentations this evening. Item 7, public hearings. There's no public hearings. Item 8, minutes of the previous meeting, 8A.
March 17th, 2020, regular meeting.
Move to accept the minutes as approved by, as prepared, rather.
It's been moved by
Second, Your
Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Second, Your Worship.
seconded by Councillor Ryu. Okay. All those in favor, I will go down the list now.
I'm going to try the vote. Sorry.
Okay,
I'm going to try the vote again.
okay, let's try that. Please vote now.
No, it's not working. You can continue.
Okay, I'll do it individually then. Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Yay.
Councillor Lockrey, Councillor Lockrey,
Yay.
Councillor Locke,
Yay.
Councillor Miller,
Yay.
Councillor Olsen,
Yay.
Councillor Ryu,
Yay.
Councillor Thompson.
Yay.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 9, unfinished business. 9A.
Department of Transportation and Infrastructure response to 2020 5-year provincially designated highway program.
Excuse me, just for a minute. Lisa, was roll call taking?
Yep.
Thank you.
Move to receive and file the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure's response to the town's 2020 provincially designated highways program application.
It's been moved by Councillor Luck,
I'll second that.
seconded by Councillor Lockrey. On the question?
On the question, Your Worship?
Yes, Councillor Ryu. Councillor Ryu.
Yeah, I mean, it is disappointing. It is quite understanding, but the fact that I assume the roundabout is still going to be worked on, and that could be considered a contribution, I suppose, to assisting us with, municipal funding. So I certainly hope that that's still on, Your Worship.
Councillor Thompson, I was just wondering if your microphone on or is it off? Okay, it's off. Just getting
It's
some
on.
feedback. Okay,
On now.
okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Miller, you had a question?
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, my question was just to confirm that it did not affect the roundabout for this year. That was my only question to the Director of Engineering. Same as Councillor Ryu.
Thank you. I'll refer this to Director of Engineering. Mr. Loge?
That's correct, Your Worship. The roundabout is considered a special project. We have been dealing with our consultants who have been in communication with DTI officials. They are actually in the middle of the review of the design at the DTI offices, recognizing their staff allocations. And we are also have been reviewed by the Watercourse Alteration Department. So it might be, it anticipated coming to tender in May. It may be a June start just because of the delays. But at this stage, the project is still a go for 2020 construction season, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Loge. Is that okay, Councillor Miller and Councillor Ryu?
It's okay with me.
Is there anything further on this? Okay. Call for the vote now. Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Aye.
Councillor Lockrey, can't hear Councillor Lockrey. Okay. Councillor Luck,
Yay.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Olsen,
Yes.
Councillor Ryu,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yay.
It's been moved to receive and file. Thank you. Item 9B. Sorry, Lisa, we can't hear you.
My apologies. New Brunswick Regional Development Corporation response to town's application for funding under the Integrated Bilateral Funding Agreement for new utility building.
Your
Move to
worship.
receive. No, go ahead.
Councillor Olsen,
Yes, I would move the Regional Development Corporation's letter denying the town application for funding under the Integrated Bilateral Funding Agreement for the new utility building be received and filed.
move to receive and file. Do I have a seconder?
Second, your worship.
Councillor Thompson, second. And on the question,
On the question, your worship,
Councillor Ryu.
yes, does this affect our situation with regards to, I know obviously we're going to be lacking funding, but would we still be a go, and how are we going to go about doing it?
I'll defer your question over to the CAO. Ms. DeVille.
With the loss of that expected funding, we're now going to be a net zero ready building, not a net zero building. So our intention all along was that funding was to help bring our building to a net zero compliant building. And unfortunately, we won't be able to do it without that funding. So we'll have to readjust to net zero ready instead.
Thank you. Anything further on this? Okay. Call for the vote. Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Aye.
Councillor Lockrey,
Aye.
Councillor Locke,
Yay.
Councillor Miller,
Yay.
Councillor Olsen,
Yes.
Councillor Ryu,
Yes.
and Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 10A.
Proposed food bank donation.
So as I stated in my mayor's notes, we were going to bring this topic forward, and Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I would move that council authorize the CAO to make the contribution of $1,500 to the KB Food Bank to help Quispamsis families who have been adversely affected by COVID-19. I would like to add to that, if council would please, that we send a letter to Rebate and ask them if they would kindly match our donation, since many of the clients that use our food bank are also from the Rebate area. I believe it's about 50%, so it's about 50-50. Thank you.
That's a good point, Deputy Mayor, and actually we do share this food bank with food basket with the town of Rebate, so thank you.
So the motion is to give the 1,500 and also to have a letter sent out immediately to Rebate, please.
It's been moved by Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Second.
second by Councillor Olsen. On the question, Councillor Miller.
Question.
Councillor
Thank
Miller.
you,
and
Worship.
Councillor Locke.
I guess on the question, you had brought up earlier that if people want to donate themselves, that there's a number to call. Could we also have that published on our website? So when people go to quispamsis.ca, if you want to help your community, here's a way to do it. And I see Susan's going to answer that question. So thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Ms. DeVille?
It's actually already on our website.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Ms.
Your
DeVille,
worship.
and Councillor Locke first. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. The only question, I had two questions actually. First one is, because that's going to take everything except for $200 out of the civic relations, I would assume that as we go on later in the year, if we need extra funds from that, we could take it from discretionary funds. And second question is there anything, and I know that we're going to be losing revenue from certain areas, but is there anything that we're not going to be doing currently with respect to, let's say, Easter preparations and whatnot, that we actually are saving funds that can be put back into the civic relations if we actually are going to be a net positive by not using expenses for other things that we're not doing? that were already budgeted.
Ms. DeVille, do you want to speak on that, Susan?
Sure. We're currently going through an analysis of our budget. We've lost a significant amount of revenue from the closure of our facilities and having to pretty much shut down all of those areas which are revenue generators for us. So at this time, we will be going through a detailed analysis on where we would have to shift that money. However, at this time, allocating anything specifically over to civic relations is outside of the analysis that we've done so far. Our goal is to try to be able to find savings that would bring us to balance at the end of the year. So we're just currently looking at what that's going to take. And unfortunately, with the parameters that have been given to us so far, we don't know when this is going to end and when, or we could see more costs associated with this. So at this time, I can't answer that question, but we'll tell you that we are doing analysis on where we can find savings.
Thank you, Ms. DeVille. And I guess further to that, with our own expense budgets, considering that they're going to be not used as much as before, that's another possible avenue where we can direct some money to other areas.
We're really hoping that council will want to put those towards the offset of the revenue that we currently have. That will be one of the areas that we will be coming to council to ask for your leadership in. As I said, the number is climbing every day for us.
Your Worship, just a comment.
Councillor Olsen?
With the money that's being allocated federally and provincially, there may be some assistance for municipalities. So we'll have to keep track of our expenses and what have you, and then make a formal application at some point in time.
Yeah, we actually have been proactive in that aspect. In any costs that are outside of the normal costs borne by the municipality that are COVID related, we are already have coding to that particular area. We have not heard, we filled out a survey for UMNB and AMANB indicating what we see as some of the costs that are outside of the normal business that we run as a municipality, but we haven't heard anything to date on a program that might be coming forward for the municipality. We are really trying to take the view of we need to be as prepared as we can to be able to offset those costs. So that's kind of the tactic we're taking right now. And in hopes that there will be a program that comes out from some level of government to assist us with additional costs and loss of revenue that we're seeing during this time.
Your Worship.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Rio.
Yeah, just not adding to the motion. The motion is a fine motion as far as I'm concerned, but I don't know whether it's a motion from council or a consensus by council, but I would certainly like to the food bank to be aware that we're there for them, and $1,500 may or may not, who knows, put a dent in some of their concerns. But I certainly would want them to be aware that regardless of loss of revenue of the town and so on, that we have to be primarily concerned that we have residents who have food in their cupboard. So, and I can only imagine that the numbers at the food bank have increased or will increase over the next month or so. And I would like to think that whoever is going to be responsible for delivering the check or communication with the food bank, that they be aware that we're the community is there for them, and we'll do what we can from the council level to assist them. Because, as I said, we don't want anybody in our community to go hungry, and it's going to be perhaps shocking to see in the next month or so, when a lot of these people who are minimum wage earners who've lost their jobs at part-time jobs and so on, how many more people will be going to the food bank? And this, I would see this $1,500 as a bit of a down payment, and I'd like to think that we'd have to perhaps seriously look down the road, if they request, that there is a link between the food bank and the town, and our ears are always open to concerns that they may have, and we'll do everything we can to help them out. That's all. I just want to make a comment on that, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rio, and we certainly will communicate with and keep in communications with the food basket. Was there anything further on this?
I just wanted to make a comment if I could, Your Worship.
Okay.
We have an amazing partnership with our food basket here in the Valley. It's in Quispamsis and we've been running it for over 22 years. Amazing group of volunteers that are doing that work. It was one of the first places when the pandemic happened that we reached out to. We were very impressed with their preparedness and their partnerships with the food bank associations across Canada in putting together a proper technique for being able to pick up the groceries, keeping that food supply safe. And also making sure that the people who have to use that food basket, that they were safe in waiting for their turn to go inside the building and being able to get their groceries. We speak to them on a weekly basis and we'll continue to do that during the pandemic. That's not something we normally do, but something that we've implemented during this time to ensure we know of their needs and where they're at, and we will continue to monitor. If we see a change and a concern about their ability to be able to continue to provide that, we will be coming back to council in that regard.
Thank you for that, Mr. Ville. And yeah, so the motion, Deputy Mayor?
Just one last comment on that. I would just like to remind the residents of Quispamsis that, as we said earlier, there is an opportunity for them to donate money rather than food products. And that number is up on our website. So I think it's really important that all of us as a community contribute in any way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion now and I will call for the vote. Deputy Mayor O'Hara?
Aye.
Councillor Lockrey?
Hey,
Councillor Locke?
Yay.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Olsen?
Yes.
Councillor Rio?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much all. Item 10B.
Sewage and water utility billing during COVID-19 pandemic period.
Your Worship, I move that council authorize the utility billing date, the due date for utility bills be changed from May 15th to July 15th for the utility bills generated in April 2020 for those families affected by layoff. Oh, okay. For those families affected by layoffs and job loss. I guess I didn't look through the whole motion, Your Worship. I mean, how do we determine which families are affected by layoffs and job loss?
Just before we get into a discussion, Councillor Rio,
Yeah.
I just looking for a seconder on this. So we
I'll
can
second that motion, Your Worship.
Councillor Locke. Okay, now Councillor Rio.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I didn't quite look through the whole motion, but at the end it says, for those families affected by layoffs and job loss. I mean, do people have to phone in the town and say they're affected by the layoff or job loss, or is it a blanket for everybody, won't have to pay till July 15th?
Mr. Ville, go ahead.
I can speak to that, Your Worship, through you, Your Worship. The way that our billing works is we have to have one billing date put on all of the bills. Our goal would be to put it out, and the expectation is those not impacted by COVID-19 would pay their bills on time. Those that require that extra time would take the time that is needed. We're trying not to create additional work for our staff, so forcing people who are in a predicament to have to call town hall, ask for an extension on their bill, and then for us to have to go in and do a calculation of their interest was not the best way for us to be able to utilize our staff, nor for the people that are in possibly a financial situation at this time. We felt that by delaying the bill date, those that know they're in trouble can take that time. Those that are able to pay and haven't been impacted by the pandemic would just pay their bill as they normally would.
Thank you. Anything further on this?
Your Worship.
Yes, Councillor Locke.
And this is directed towards Mr. Ville. Is it possible to just have a little disclaimer or a sentence saying what you just said, so that those that don't need the extension actually are just paying it as per normal, and those that understand that they can have an extension will do so? I'm just wondering will that take work to put the sentence on the bills?
What we normally do is we have a mail out that goes with our utility bill. So we'll include some verbiage on a special insert that will go with the billing that will make it very clear that the expectation for those not impacted by the pandemic would pay their bill by the usual date, and those that need a little extra time would be able to take the extension on the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Are we talking the utility bills as far as water, or are we talking sewage bills as well? Because they've already gone up.
The ones for this quarter, we would be sending out with the change in the date.
Oh, okay. People that pay on a quarterly basis. Okay, got it.
Councillor Lockrey, did you have something you want?
I was going to ask if the 2-month extension was enough. The reason why I say that is a lot of institutions are doing 3 to 6 months, and I was just thinking, is 2 months enough of an extension for someone that's been affected when most organizations are doing 3 or longer?
Mr. Ville, did you want to comment on that?
We've noticed that we've seen a lot of municipalities that have been doing that. I think that if there was somebody that needed some additional time beyond that, they could maybe call the town and we can make specific arrangements for them. But I think as a whole, putting it out kind of in the beginning for that, and then those that we could handle on a case-by-case basis after that.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Does anybody? Okay, motion stands. Deputy Mayor O'Hara?
Yes.
Councillor Lockrey?
Yes.
Councillor Luck?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Olsen?
Yes.
Councillor Rio?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson, sorry.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10C.
Sandbag Spring Freshet 2020.
I would move that council approve the purchase of pre-filled sandbags up to $45,000 plus HST. Funding for this cost will come from the operating reserve fund or any surplus in the operating budget at year end.
Been moved by Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
I'll second that, Your Worship.
seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question?
On the question.
On the question?
Yes, Councillor Locke first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm concerned, I was concerned last year, I'm concerned even more this year that potentially that we're going to be budgeting $45,000 for individuals. I still feel to see why this is our responsibility, and the homes that we might have been in touch with already, I'm wondering if we've indicated that they could pick these up for free or that we will actually be charging them the cost. Because for me, this is going to continue forever, and I hate to set a precedence. And as I used last year, when lightning hits my house or I don't know, the snow goes in through the window, I don't call the town to help with that disaster. So I'm just wondering how often we're going to do this, how long it's going to continue, what happens next year if it's quadruple the amount. I just think that we're really setting ourselves up for something. At the very least, if we do it, I think we should be charging for it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Luck. Councillor Miller, I think, was next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, mine was very similar to Councillor Luck's, was more the comment, are we going to charge for these? Because majority of the people they've been doing this for a few years, a lot of them are buying them themselves. I know in the last few years we've been filling them for free for them, which is fantastic. I don't know how many we have left over from last year. I know I think there was a few pallets. It's just the concern, is 20,000 the right amount? Should we be charging them at least $1.50, $2 per bag? it's just an interesting thing, but I know when they call a state of emergency, things change as well, but it's, yeah. And where are we going to store 20,000 sandbags if we don't use them this year? Where do they go?
Thank you, Councillor Miller. I was wondering how many we have left too, so I'll have that question. Mr. Ville, did you want to answer any of these questions before we? I think others have.
I certainly can, unless I think the deputy mayor was looking to speak.
I can't see everybody. So, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, my concern was the same. Back in 2018, we had an unprecedented flood. And at that point, it was all hands on deck. We took our staff out of their regular spring work for almost a month. That same issue hit us again last year in 2019. And I, along with Councillor Locke and a couple of other people, said the same thing. I had a tree fall on my driveway. I didn't call the town to come and remove that. I had to pay for that. So my concern is the same. If this is an ongoing thing, and so we've had 2 years in a row, if this year we have a third flood, then it's not something that we don't know is coming. So I believe that it's incumbent upon our residents to mitigate that problem on their properties, and that from this time forward, that has to be the message that we give.
Thank you. Do others have comments or questions?
Your worship.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, we'll go with Councillor Olsen and then Councillor Lockrey and then Councillor Ryu.
Yep, thank you. One of the questions I had, I thought that they paid $1 a bag or something last year. Am I wrong? They didn't? Okay. The other thing is, do we have to, this particular year, I agree with some payment of some sort for the bags, but also do we have to commit to a full $45,000 worth, or can we do it piecemeal, depending on the need, you know, without, like you say, having a surplus of bags if they're not used, laying around our property. Can we do it? I don't know how many bags does $45,000 buy you?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Olsen. We'll continue on and then we'll have Ms. DeVille answer some of these questions. Councillor Lockrey, I believe you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. My questions were pretty much along the same line. I am not really in favor of purchasing the sandbags for personal use for personal residents. I have the same comments that have been said. My question was, where do we come up with that number that we wanted to purchase? Was that from previous years of how many we've used or filled, and that we should be charging for them? If we're going to purchase them, I think we should be charging for them.
Thank you. Councillor Ryu.
Yes, I had similar thoughts. My first thought is, do we have to spend this much money? And to go along with Councillor Olsen's comments, you know, can we get it piecemeal? Can we spend 20,000 up to 45,000, for example? The other idea of getting the residents to pay, where we have in the past supplied labor for them and supplied the sand, all of a sudden within the next 3 weeks to say to them, okay, this year you have to pay. I mean, I'm wondering if we might have to take the bullet, bite the bullet on this year's budget, but next fall budget season, when we're looking at this, to definitely say or set up some sort of plan that we're not going to be able to put any money aside for sandbagging, that residents are on their own. To tell them that story right now, with the very real possibility of another big strong freshet this year, because the snows above Fredericton are unreal, I understand. With a big storm this Friday, it may, depending on the melt, we all realize that. But I mean, yeah, they have to be responsible. But we've sort of set ourselves up at this late date tell them that, oh, we're not going to provide any free sand this year might be too much. I'll go along with whatever council wants to do, guys. If you say they have to pay for it, that's fine. They may find, a lot of residents may find that the fact that they know where there's sandbags to be gotten, and just to drive up the street, for example, up to the Qplex overflow parking lot is a lot more convenient for them than to get some company from St. John to haul them all the way out. So there may be some savings for them to pay at this time, but it just seems like we're awful close to putting an announcement. We're awful close to the event to put an announcement in that we're going to supply them for cost this year. So we might have to buy the bullet this year, but in fall funding, budget time, we have to seriously look and say, and make a policy of the council that we will not pay for bags. We will not pay for free, and they'll have to be purchased. So it's just a thought's gone through my mind. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Ryu. Is there anyone else that hasn't spoken? Okay, I'll turn it over to Ms. DeVille.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to try my best to cover off all of the questions, and if I've missed something, please let me know. So first and foremost, the question about how many bags were left over from last year, we have 3,500 sandbags that are ready to go for this year. So the $45,000 that we're asking for is to procure another 12,000 sandbags. From that perspective, a lot of people asking, how do we know that number? We're actually one of the only municipalities last year that collected information on every property that took sandbags. We then cross-referenced those addresses against anybody who took a wall walk permit out, which would have meant building a seawall or something of that nature that would help, that wouldn't require sandbags this year, and subtracted that number off, as well as the numbers that we used for the Mean's Cove Beach House. So from the totals that we needed last year, taking all of those numbers off, we've come up with requiring approximately 15,000 sandbags. We've just recently sent a letter out to the homeowners that we know have been impacted by the flooding in the last few years, asking them to fill out our Q11 or call to our number to register for how many sandbags they think they would need if there was an emergency freshet. And I think it's really important to differentiate between a normal freshet and an emergency freshet. And I want to ensure that council understands that I beat this drum every opportunity that I get, that I don't believe it is the municipality's responsibility to protect private property. And anybody who attends those meetings know that it's one of the topics that I bring up at every turn. The answer that I get back from NBEMO is that it is a municipal responsibility in the case of an emergency to be able to provide services to homeowners when they can no longer provide those services for themselves. And I understand the argument to that is they've known that for the last 2 years. Why have they not done something? That doesn't seem to factor into the answer that I get back every time, is that it is our responsibility. The way NBEMO works is when the homeowner is no longer able to cover for themselves, it then becomes a municipal responsibility. When the municipality becomes overwhelmed and they're not able to provide the response, it then becomes a provincial responsibility. So in these particular circumstances, when the province has deemed the last couple of years these events, when they get above a certain level, to be an emergency, it leaves us with an obligation as the municipality to assist, which is why I agree with council that I think that this should be paid for by the homeowners, but that view is not shared by NBEMO. Our concern is we purchased empty sandbags, planned on having a sandbag station, which wouldn't have had this kind of cost for council. However, we cannot meet the requirements under the emergency declaration to be able to physically distance. Not only that, is it has the potential to be putting people in our community at risk. So we've been asked, and NBEMO has made it very clear that we need to be prepared for this. The only way that I have now to be able to be prepared is to purchase pre-filled sandbags in case we need them. So to the question asked about what are we going to do with all these sandbags if we don't use them, we're going to have to find a way to store them out of UV light in order to be able to save them for years to come, which we understand will be a challenge, and we may have to purchase something to be able to put them under that would keep the UV light off of them to ensure that they're good for the next year. My concern is I cannot provide an emergency service that we know has a very high likelihood of happening if I can't purchase pre-filled sandbags. So for us, we've really tried to whittle down the number to what we believe is actually necessary based on our historical data, as well as the data that we're asking for people in our municipality to fill out, so we know what they're looking for, and then we will purchase what we need. The other concern is that we have to purchase them in advance to ensure that we have them in case we need them. So it's not like it's a situation where I can buy them at the last minute, because they have to be prepared. And unfortunately, you can't just pull 12,000 sandbags out of the sky very quickly. So unfortunately, it's a decision that has to be made right away to ensure that the bags are made and delivered to the municipality in case we need them.
Your worship.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bell. Councillor Locke.
I guess my question would go back to the New Brunswick EMO, because what you were saying, Mr. Bill, can be spun a few different ways. When they say provide services, to me that means provide them with electricity and garbage pickup. Doesn't mean to sandbag their house and give them a bunch of sandbags to protect their houses, because each and every year there's been thousands of houses that flood. So clearly, if that's what the emergency flood levels means, then everybody is failing that mandate by NB EMO. And then I would question, why are we the only ones that are preparing to sandbag houses? And when they say provide services, does it actually say provide services for free with no money? Like, I don't quite understand.
Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. One of the things that you said, Mr. Bill, is that we have a responsibility to provide some sort of emergency services. But I would say that the homeowner also has a responsibility to demonstrate to us that there has been a measure taken after the 2018 at the highest level that the floodwaters hit, that's where they should start looking at mitigating the problem. So 2019 might have been a little bit less than 2018, but they should look at the highest level that the water has hit and start mitigating their problem at their home at that level. And I believe even the provincial government at one point said enough's enough, and that there was an expectation that homeowners mitigate the flooding issues around their homes, the ones that are in LSDs along the St. John River. So I would say that it is the homeowner's responsibility, and I think that we would have an argument for the EMO to say that the homeowner is responsible for their home and for the safety of it. We've done this under an emergency in 2018. We did it again in 2019, and I think that's where we should stop. So if we choose to do this again and spend $45,000 of taxpayer dollars, then I believe a message should go out that this is the final time. Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Bill, and thank you all the other councillors for the comments as well. I guess there's a few things here, and I'll just leave it at the end. So I think we need some anyways for our own town structures, not for the beach house, obviously, for different reasons, but we may need a certain amount for some of our own structures, whether it's the pumping stations, to make sure we're fine. So we do need to buy some. I do think we need to charge if we do have them, because very unfair that some homeowners are buying them every year to find out their neighbor's getting them for free, as an example. And the last thing I would like to comment is every year we have to throw these away because they are quote unquote contaminated. I have a challenge with that because it's sand, okay, it's a little dirty, but they talk about contamination. So every year we're throwing away 15,000 sandbags that we got to pay to get rid of as well, or however many it was. So anyways, there's a couple things there. I think we still need to charge. I think we still need to have enough to make sure that we are safe as far as our town infrastructure if we do need sandbags. So I'm 100% good for that. But if you do give them for free, how do we start saying that one neighbor gets them for free and the other person went and bought them? Are they going to then charge us for the money? Say, I had to buy 300 sandbags and you gave 300 to my neighbor. So it's a tough discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Okay, so I guess we'll ask for the motion. It's been a few minutes to, if we could repeat who had moved and seconded the motion. Ms. McGinnis?
Your worship, I don't really think that council has discussed a consensus, and I think that we have to charge the residents. I think it's might probably be too late to poll the known problem locations to see if they'd be willing to buy the sandbags from us. If we purchase some, we can offer them an economy of scale price on buying a large quantity, but I can't see us, that's a large number of spent on these bags, and they might not be used. So I don't know, maybe the CAO may have a thought on that, but it's a lot of money for that sand that I think we all agree that they should pay a portion of, or whatever.
What I was just saying though, Councillor Olsen, is I believe we have a motion on the table that we have to deal with first. But Ms. DeVille, if you wanted to comment on Councillor Olsen before.
I do know that last year when kind of before it became a quote unquote emergency flooding situation, that there were municipalities in our region that were charging for sandbags. Once it was declared as an emergency, they actually had to stop charging. So that actually has been kind of potentially an issue for us. In the past, the DFA program has reimbursed us for any of our costs as a municipality because it was deemed an emergency. Our problem in this particular case is, again, we don't kind of have the magic 8-ball to know whether or not it's going to be an emergency or whether or not we're going to even need the sandbags. My concern at this point is that there will be residents in our community who we know for a fact have not done anything around preparedness that may be coming to the municipality in an emergency situation looking for help. If we do not purchase sandbags at this time, we won't be able to provide them, which is our, as we've been told by NBEMO, is our obligation to provide. Whether I agree or I disagree with the analogy on that, and I don't necessarily agree, that's what I've been told.
Deputy Mayor, could I just ask one more question of Ms. DeVille, please?
Okay.
Mr. DeVille, what does this $45,000 compare to in our costs? And I know that we recouped some of the costs. So over 2018 flood and the 2019 flood, in either one of those years, would it have been $45,000? Would it have been $150,000? And I don't mean to put you on the spot. I know you don't have those numbers in front of you, but any ballpark idea? Is this way under what we would typically be putting out as far as staff and materials and trucks, that sort of thing? Thank you.
When you actually look at the cost associated with manning stations such as that for quite a few days, food for the volunteers, and the actual cost associated with our staff, we would have spent actually significantly more than $45,000 to be able to make that happen. And it's intriguing to me when we've run the numbers, which is why I'm sure last year people thought we were a bit intrusive in the fact that we wanted to know every address and how many sandbags were going to each address. We actually have a really good tracking of those numbers and an understanding of all of our costs. So purchasing them is actually very equivalent to creating them as well. It's just we can actually distribute them significantly faster when they're pre-filled versus the way our response to the emergency is set up is to give us a lot of days leeway to help start preparing the bags, getting the sandbag station open, allowing people multiple days to be able to come and pick up the sandbags and create those berms in front of their house. So it definitely is extremely comparable to the cost.
So, Your Worship, then, if this motion does not pass as it is it possible that we can amend it to say exactly what has been mentioned with respect to charging for the bags up until which time it may be deemed an emergency? Because I know that earlier this year, Costco was selling an assortment of bags that you could buy, which some people, if I had a house near the river, I would have done that. Also, we don't know what homes have got insurance over the past couple of years to get their floors redone, or etc. I know 2 people in Grand Lake that have completely refinished their cabins on insurance money. So again, I find it very odd that we would even contemplate not charging when the homeowner can get the money back anyway. So if you're preparing, as most people should, you pay for it up until the point it becomes an emergency. And if it becomes an emergency, you're past the point anyways. You've waited too long. So to me, I think that perhaps the motion should be amended to charge for the bags for those that need them or want them, up until which time it will become an emergency. And at that time, if we're forced to provide them, then we do it. I do have the last question of saying that if we run out, then we have no bags left. What does EMO say then? So we're in the same situation, right? If we don't buy 100,000 bags if we needed them, they can't come back on us and say, shame on you, there's nothing we can do. So I think they're being very wishy-washy. It's not a proper answer. And we've got to get a proper answer on letterhead from the government, exactly what they mean, because as Susan has said, and I understand, and I know that she does fight for the community this way, but that's not an answer for a town like ours, to be told that we're responsible, but not tell us for how many, for how long, or for what residents.
Thank you, Councillor Locke, and good points. We can certainly amend the motion.
Your Worship?
Councillor Rio?
Yes, just a further comment. I mean, I like what Councillor Locke said. I don't know whether it necessarily needs an amendment. We could have a tabling motion, which would indicate that we purchase, I don't know the amount, but that we purchase an amount and give the residents an opportunity to buy from the amount that we get, and give them as Councillor Olsen said, give them a deal on scale, which would be which would be a fair thing to say. Just a further comment, Your Worship. It's rather interesting. We were debating if, well, we talked about it a few minutes ago about giving $1,500 to the food bank, which is, I don't know how many families, but I hazard to guess there's 150, maybe 200 families. And then we're debating whether to give $45,000 to maybe a couple of dozen families who live in $500,000 homes. It's, kind of, it's got a little fuzziness to it, Your Worship, but the consensus I'm getting from listening to everybody is that it's maybe not so much buying the bags, but giving them for free is a concern. And if we could buy in bulk, give them an in bulk the price for it, then the residents can't come back and say we weren't doing anything for them. So anyway, Your Worship, it could be somebody could give an amendment to the motion possibly, or table a fresh motion. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Yes, I just have a quick question. When we purchase pre-filled sandbags, first of all, where will they be located? And if we are charging the residents, does that mean that staff will have to be there sort of around the clock to ensure that the bags are being paid for?
Mr. Ville?
That actually is one of the concerns with charging for the sandbags. Our plan was, under the model for the last couple of years that we've been required to provide sandbags, our plan was to open up a sandbag station with minimal staff for those homeowners who have indicated to us the sandbags that they require would only be open for a couple of days. They would come and pick them up. We would not be responsible for delivery or setup. The homeowners would have to figure that out or hire a contractor to be able to do that. Our problem with charging is people are going to have different timeframes that they're going to want these sandbags. Our plan was, upon purchase, was to select a date close to when we thought that they might be needed for delivery, to ensure that we don't have people coming and going out of our wherever we have them delivered to for the pickup site, and that they wouldn't go missing during that period of time. So we wouldn't want to have them well in advance. Again, it's this 8 ball trying to figure out when we would actually need them for. but there will be challenges in charging for them from that perspective, other than when we had, our plan was when we had the 2 days that we would have the pickup station open, that we would be able to collect the data. I guess technically the town could send a bill out in that regard. Unfortunately, that then becomes a collections issue for us after the fact, but our problem is we wouldn't want staff to be at that, getting people to come and pay for bags right at the station. It would cause a lot of difficulty for us to be able to collect that money.
Thank you, Ms. Gill.
Just one more point. I just want to make it clear that I will support this year, given that we are in the, hopefully the middle, hopefully the end of a pandemic. I don't want to throw anything else at people that they have to worry about. However, I would like to make it extremely clear that the message get out that this is the final year that we will do this, because I agree with Councillor Locke. I do not believe it's the responsibility of council or the town of Quispamsis to shore up homes to ensure that they are not flooded, particularly if it's year after year after year. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask the clerk now to let us know who made the motion and seconded it, and then we'll call.
Motion was made by Deputy Mayor O'Hara, seconded by Councillor Thompson.
Okay, Deputy Mayor O'Hara, Councillor Thompson, are you okay with the motion as it is?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Your worship,
Deputy Mayor.
Your worship. Oh, sorry.
Deputy Mayor.
I'm okay with it. I respect everything that's been said. I agree with everything that's been said. We have a very short window right now before freshet season. And again, we're in the middle of the pandemic. I don't like the cost. I don't like the fact that we are providing this service, but I will go along with it this year because as I say, the window of time is just too short to change.
Okay, so the mover and seconder are okay with the motion. I will now call for the vote. Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councillor Lockrey.
Yes.
Councillor Locke.
No.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Olsen.
No.
Councillor Ryu.
No.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
So we have a 4-3 in favor motion. Motion will carry. Thank you. Item 11, the bylaws.
Proposed signed bylaw amendment number 036-3 regarding political signs.
Move third and final reading to sign bylaw number 036-03.
Moved by Councillor Locke,
Seconded.
seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Hara. On the question, Councillor Locke, do you want to read this?
Yep.
Thank you.
Amendment number 03 to bylaw number 036, a bylaw of the municipality of Quispamsis respecting signs. Be it enacted by the council of the town of Quispamsis that bylaw number 036, a bylaw of the town of Quispamsis respecting signs, is hereby amended as follows. 1, by replacing after section 2A38 with the following. 38, sign political means a sign that pertains only to an election by the voters in the town of Quispamsis for district education council, regional health authority, town council, provincial government, or federal government. 2, by replacing after section 3DG1 with the following. G, political signs, provided that such signs 1 are not installed before provincial or federal election is officially called or before the end of the nomination period of the town of Quispamsis district education council and regional health authority elections, read first time and second time March 17th, 2020, and read third time and enacted April 7th, 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Locke. It's been moved by Councillor Locke, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Hara on the question. Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councillor Lockrey,
Yes.
Councillor Locke,
Yes.
Councillor Miller, Councillor Olsen,
Yes.
Councillor Rio,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item 12, new business, 12A.
Approval to proceed to Part B of the wastewater pumping station number 1, Roberts Lane upgrade.
We have a resolution here.
It is recommended council direct Crandall Engineering to proceed to Part B, detailed design and tender preparation of the Gondola Point Road wastewater pumping station upgrade at Phase 1, Roberts Lane, for the upset fee of $27,196 plus HST. Staff will seek council approval for authorization prior to proceeding to Part C of the project.
Second.
Been moved. Moved by Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Olsen on the question.
Question.
Questions called for. Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councillor Lockrey,
Yes.
Councillor Locke,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Olsen,
Yes.
Councillor Rio,
Yes.
and Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item 12, 12B.
Request for proposal, electric vehicle for parks and facilities.
So we have a resolution here for the purchase of a new electric car.
Your worship,
Councillor Thompson.
I would move that we purchase a new electric 2020 Hyundai Kona from St. John Hyundai for $43,464.49 plus HST license and tire levy.
It's been moved by Councillor Thompson,
I'll second it to get the debate going, Your Worship.
it's been seconded by Councillor Locke. Go ahead, Councillor Locke.
I understand, and I know that we passed this last budget year, and the only question I had is it something that we still absolutely need at this time?
Thank you. I'll refer your question over to our CAO, Ms. DeVille.
That was actually a vehicle for the Parks and Facilities Department. So if we wouldn't mind letting the Director of Community Services answer that question.
Sure, Ms. Dana Burton-Dix.
Thank you, Your Worship. The car would be used by the Parks and Facilities Manager, and the one that he has been using hasn't worked in the last couple of months. So it's become non-functional and isn't available for use and unsafe. So we parked it a couple months ago, and he's using a truck out of the fleet. So I would obviously say that this is needed for that purpose. He doesn't have a vehicle right now.
Councillor Locke, do you have anything further on this?
No, I'll let Councillor Miller take that question.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a multi-pronged question. So the first one will go to Krista, please, about finance. The HST, how much of that is recoverable?
So I don't have the exact percentage, but it's 71.43%, I believe.
Okay, so we get about 30%. Yeah. Okay. My second question, or a bit of a concern, because I had emailed a question to Director of Parks and Recreation earlier. I know we want to be green and we want to have that image. I did a quick little analysis. I know we did it. This current one is 12 years old. We've done 170,000 kilometers on it. I tried to find out how much electric costs per kilowatt hour. I figured it's about 12 cents. I looked at what a gas would get at $1.20. Anyways, I did a little bit of math, and I also looked at what a regular Kona you could buy for was about $22,251. I guess the challenge is, even with the savings on all the electrical versus gas, is the absolute cost for an electric car, specifically in New Brunswick versus other provinces. There's only a $5,000 federal rebate here in New Brunswick, where if you go to Quebec, it's like $13,000. So that's one of the reasons, at least from the data I could read, there's only about 500 electric cars on the road here in New Brunswick. And that's one of the reasons why. So if it's being used for parks and recreation, I know other people use it. It's great image. An electric vehicle historically lasts about 100,000 miles or 160K in 8 years. If you look at a Honda Civic or a smaller car, they're 10 to 12 years. So I think there's still, for next year when we're talking about these kind of things, we still have to look at the cost benefit analysis as well. And also, if we're doing this, it shouldn't just be a Parks and Recreation. If anybody's going to a meeting in Fredericton, whether you're from Parks and Recreation or from another department, that's the vehicle you should bring versus taking one and charging mileage if you can, if we do go for this electric vehicle, because it's an awful lot of money. It's an extra almost $20,000 for a car that you could buy the same that's gas. Probably about 15,000 more than a hybrid. And even when I did my cost analytics, even on 170K, unless we're getting the electricity for free, it's still cheaper to buy a regular car for 170K. And a regular car will last 10 to 12 years, where these are currently an electric battery scheduled to be 8 years. So it's just a consideration comment for future as well. And either can respond, Dana or Susan, or sorry, CAO or direct.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. I will go back over to Ms. Burton-Dixon. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make a quick comment about the travel. We do share that car, and actually all the cars in the fleet, the other electric vehicles that are with building inspection. I know the CEO and I have traveled to meetings in those cars before, and the Parks and Recreation vehicle is used by the admin staff as well for beach house showings, and staff take those vehicles to travel for conferences and such on a regular basis. So we are doing that now.
Thank you. Does anybody have? Oh, Ms. DeVille, go ahead.
I also just wanted to add that this council has actually set a goal for us in greenhouse gas emission reduction. As a part of my job now, I have to try and meet that, or help you meet that target. This is actually one of those initiatives that was recognized as a part of identifying vehicles through replacement that would be key vehicles that meet the criteria of being able to save more money as an electric vehicle versus a gas vehicle. It has to do with the number of kilometers, the service hours within the town, and being able to really be 100% electric type vehicle within the parameters. So we certainly have looked at that, and that was the other consideration and the recommendation that came forward, is this is one of the initiatives to be able to help us meet the target that was set by council on our corporate goal for 2025.
Thank you, Ms. DeVille.
Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
Yes, I guess I would be directing this to the Director of Community Services or Ms. DeVille. In respect to greenhouse gases, when we look at the comparison of gas compared to electric, I get that we are, not putting as much greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. When we do away with that car, so just as an example, the existing car has been grounded now, I believe, Ms. Burton-Dixon, for some time because it just hasn't been operating properly or safely. When we do do away with that battery, are we responsible for making sure that it goes safely back into the environment? And if so, what cost is associated with that? And if not, who is responsible, and what is the greenhouse impact on that?
Ms. Burton-Dixon.
I don't know the answers to those questions. I have to get back to you on that. the car would not be usable. So I would expect we'd be obviously responsible for the proper disposal of the battery and the vehicle with what we decide to do with that, but I don't know the cost of that.
My apologies. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I just, I know that there would be a cost for getting rid of that battery. So thank you for that.
Your worship.
Councillor Locke.
Just a question. I'm not sure who it's directed to, but I thought that potentially we weren't available to get the federal rebate as a municipality. Is that true or not? And secondly, is Hyundai giving us the same warranty as they would to the general public on that vehicle?
The
Go ahead.
the $5,000 rebate from the federal government was taken off by the price by the dealer. And it's my understanding in conversation with the Director of Engineering and Works that there is another federal program for electric vehicles with regard to fleet, but that we do not meet the threshold for that because our fleet is too small.
So this vehicle is actually $48,000?
Sorry, I was just toggling back and forth there, Your Worship. The vehicle is the $43,000, so it's just under the $45,000 that we have budgeted. The 5,000's already been taken off.
Thank you. Anything further? No. Okay, I will call now for the question. Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councillor Lockrey.
Yes.
Councillor Locke.
No.
Councillor Miller.
No.
Councillor Olsen.
Yes.
Councillor Ryu.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion carried 5-2. Thank you. And 12C.
Maple Ridge Estate Subdivision Phase 2B, PID number 231928, council assent.
Your worship, I'd move that council grant assent to the Maple Ridge Estates Phase 2B subdivision plan, so the plan can be stamped and signed by the town clerk and development officer for registration in the provincial land registration office.
It's been moved by Councillor Olsen,
Second.
second by Councillor Luck on the question. Deputy Mayor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councillor Lockrey.
Yes.
Councillor Luck.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Olsen.
Yes.
Councillor Ryu.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Item 12D.
Proposed resolution authorizing the closure of municipal facilities as required.
I would resolve that whereas the province of New Brunswick has declared a state of emergency in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, therefore be it resolved that council hereby authorizes the immediate closure of any municipal facilities that are deemed necessary for closure due to public safety concerns, and council further authorize the chief administrative officer to close any further town parks and beaches and/or facilities as may be determined necessary for the protection of the public.
There's just a little bit more there, I think, Deputy Mayor. Just that the closure shall stay in effect until further resolution of council. Been moved by Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Second.
second by Councillor Miller on the question. Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councillor Lockrey,
Yes.
Councillor Locke,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Olsen,
Yes.
Councillor Ryu,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item 13, reports.
Move to receive and file reports, Your Worship.
Been
Second,
moved
Your
by
Worship.
Been moved by Councillor Locke, seconded by Councillor Thompson on the question. Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councillor Lockrey,
Yes.
Councillor Locke,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Olsen,
Yes.
Councillor Ryu,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion to receive and file reports. Thank you. Motion carried. Item 14, business arising. There was no committee of the whole this evening. So now I will call for the motion for adjournment. Before I do that, just please remind everybody to be safe and look out for each other. Looking for a motion.
Move for adjournment. Happy
Second, Your
Easter,
Worship.
everyone.
Been moved by Deputy Mayor O'Hara, seconded by Councillor Ryu on the question. Deputy Mayor O'Hara,
Yes.
Councillor Lockrey,
Yes.
Councillor Luck,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Olsen,
Yes.
Councillor Ryu,
Yes.
Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson,
Yes.
motion carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again to our CAO and to staff for putting this together this evening and keeping everybody safe. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Happy